Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and this is going to be another wrestling review. So right off the bat, I hope you enjoy my nice sweater. It's supposed to be red, but it's showing up, at least to me, as orange on the camera. So that does kind of suck, but at least it's warm. It keeps me warm, so that's nice. But speaking of red, it's time to delve into a new era. It's time to talk about the Raw debut on Netflix from last week. Well, better late than never, I guess. But we're going to go through what went down when Raw officially made its Netflix debut. Oh, and of course, as always, I'm not professional wrestling reviewer or analyst or anything like that. Just a man who enjoys a good time, and I had a pretty decent time, I would say, with the show. So I guess without further ado, let's get right into it. If you've seen these reviews before, you kind of already know how this works. If you haven't, we'll be talking about what I liked and disliked about the show, the matches, and some of the in between stuff, because that's also important as well, and you're gonna find out why. And we're gonna obviously go match by match and segment by segment. Now, this is courtesy of WWE.com themselves. They actually go through the full results of the show. And what happened, and that's what we will go through. Right off the bat, they do a little hype package, hyping up the official debut. Triple H shows off the new Raw Netflix set and how it looks including the stage, the announce tables even, and I gotta say, it looks pretty damn clean. Like the stage, the logo itself it's okay. It's not the greatest logo of all time, but it's okay. Hey, I know they had a couple different Raw logos that they were gonna go with, that were rumored for them to go with for the new Raw Netflix, obviously, and I think the one they chose is okay. Hey, is it the greatest Raw logo of all time? No. In fact, I might do a tier list. I should have did one when I did the Monday Night Wars last year, but better late than never, I guess. Story of my life in a way, but the new presentation, how it looks, it actually looks pretty clean, I must say. But then, now that Triple H has introduced, then The Rock shows up. And I remember almost, it was for the couple days before it was kind of rumored, or even a few weeks, I think, before the debut of Raw on Netflix. They were talking about the possibility of The Rock showing up, and it's kind of in a way, kind of will he, won't he. People weren't really sure if The Rock indeed would show up to Raw on Netflix. But it makes sense that he did, and I imagine they probably were hoping, best case scenario, for The Rock to show up on Netflix, because as you're gonna see throughout the show, they were definitely bringing out the big guns. It kind of had a WrestleMania feel, but not in the way you might think. But nevertheless, The Rock is there. He kind of talks to the audience, kind of hypes up the show. He even acknowledges his cousin, Roman Reigns, is gonna be in action against Solo Sikoa in tribal combat. But he also acknowledges Cody Rhodes, the man who he quote unquote shed blood with. Now, this drew quite a bit of, I don't know if I necessarily want to say ire or more confusion. People wondering why The Rock was putting over Cody Rhodes. It was after spending so long beating him up, and a lot of people were confused with that. It's simple. The Rock wasn't in Final Boss character. He had the music, obviously. But he obviously wasn't in character. It's supposed to more so be out of character to hype up the show. And he even took pictures and everything with Cody. And Cody actually was in the audience, but not the last time we'll see him. But obviously The Rock was not in character. Or more so, it's more so, Rock representative, Rock, in a way. instead of in character final boss heel Raw. Now I can kind of see maybe the confusion in there, but I think once Rock started going into a spiel, that's when you realize, oh, he's obviously not in character. He's obviously there to hype up the show. Executive Rock. Executive was the word I was looking for earlier, but it was obviously Executive Rock and not in character Raw. Pretty much doing what he needs to do to build up the show, hype up the show. Oh, obviously, if he was in character, he would trash the audience. He would trash Cody. He maybe even throw some sneak disses towards Roman, but. He does mention Mama Rhodes though, so there is that. But yeah, so, but then The Rock kind of wraps up and moves on and moves us along to the opening match, where the aforementioned Roman Reigns battles the also aforementioned Solo Sikoa in aforementioned Tribal Combat for the Ulafala and the title of Tribal Chief. So, of course, Roman and Solo have been warring since Roman's return at SummerSlam, and they battled it out. They had the tag team match with Solo and Jacob Fatu against Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes at Bad Blood. Excuse me, they had the OG versus New Bloodline at Survivor Series. Now it comes down to this: who will be the Tribal Chief? Who will have to acknowledge who? And Paul Heyman is there, and he's holding the Ulafala, and it's kind of a double stipulation where whoever wins will also get these services of Paul Heyman, and alongside the aforementioned accolade of being Tribal Chief and the Ulafala itself, they'll also get these services of the Wise Man, Paul Heyman. And now, apparently, the report came out that they wanted to do a Tribal Chief Championship, like a championship belt. And admittedly, a lot of people were against it. I was one of them because you already have your Tribal Chief Championship, the Ulafala. That's essentially what it is. It's essentially he shows who's the Tribal Chief, as they've established for a little while, for say, I don't know, the past like 5 years or so on commentary, that symbolizes who's the Tribal Chief, who's the head of the table. There's your Tribal Chief Championship. You don't need another championship. Do I think a Tribal Championship would have looked nice? Maybe, but you save yourself the medal, essentially. You save yourself the medal, you save yourself the strap, you save yourself the creation of the championship, because you already, in a way, have the championship. You have it symbolized there in the Ulafala. But nevertheless, this match was pretty decent. Having this match go on first, or pretty much to get that out of the way, to really not only warm the fans up, but also to kind of wind down on this feud. I think having this start off in a big way for your big Raw debut on Netflix, I think was a very smart move, and we do see interference not just from the new bloodline, but from the OG bloodline as well. Ultimately, but it is worth mentioning even before that, Kevin Owens does show up and shows up, stuns Reigns, and then urges for Solo to pin in Roman. Now, Kevin's thing is he's supposed to be against the OG bloodline because of what they did to him. But have you forgotten that Solo was a part of the OG bloodline at one point, that you fought him too? And even if you did forget that, Kevin, did you forget you were fighting Solo throughout 2024 as well before you turned on Cody? It could be seen as kind of weird, but I think also kind of a Freudian slip that Kevin isn't all he appears to be. Kevin's the heel, and obviously his intentions aren't quite true. So I think that was mostly to reinforce that Kevin's not justified after all. He is the heel, at least on WWE's part. That's just a theory of mine, so don't quote me on that. But ultimately, it's in vain. And Cody Rhodes does show up, and he dukes out with Kevin for a little bit. It ultimately Roman in nailing like nailing Solo with the spear, as well as another one, and thankfully they have it laid out here on WWE.com, so I can kind of follow along move for move, so I know which moves won it. But ultimately Roman wins. He is the official, the only, the real tribal chief in a way. That's probably why they went with OTC instead of RTC, because RTC probably would have reminded people of right to censor, and yeah, no. But yes, Roman is awarded the Ula, followed by Paul Heyman. He shakes hands and in a way, or more sort of clasps hands with his cousin The Rock. Maybe I'm alone here. I was waiting for the turn. I was waiting for Paul to turn on Roman. I was then waiting for The Rock to turn on Roman. Neither of which happened. So, either we're not getting Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania, or it's going to take a different path. But for now, Roman Reigns regains the Ulafala. Solo has been bested, and there's about an hour down of the show already. Yeah, this pretty much took up most, if not all, of the first hour of Raw. Between The Rock doing his thing, the tribal combat between Roman and Solo, and the following segment that took up like your first hour of the show. Because next up, John Cena comes out. John Cena kind of talks about this being his last year in wrestling, how the final time is now, and talks about how he hasn't won a match since or hasn't won a singles match since, I believe he said, either 2017 or 2018. I believe he said 2018. Which is crazy to think about. How he's lost almost every time he's won, and the times he has won has been like tag team matches. But it's crazy how he hasn't won like a singles match since 2018. Considering it's John Cena, that is actually pretty crazy to think about. Now, maybe it's not that crazy because that's when he started wrestling like less and less and kind of adopted the part-time schedule, and he only really came back for like kind of big matches, is to an extent. Like by like 2020s, he'd be there very less often, and he'd only have like the matches with like the Fiend at WrestleMania 36, or like the SummerSlam match against Roman, and or match at WrestleMania against Austin Theory, stuff like that. But then John Cena saying he wants to climb back to the mountaintop. He wants to win another world championship, and thus announces himself for the Royal Rumble. So John Cena is going to be in the Royal Rumble. Now, admittedly, I do want to do a separate video about John Cena's final year, but me personally, this might sound insane. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to say masochistic because it's not happening to me, but me personally, I want John to do everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I'm talking Royal Rumble. I'm talking Elimination Chamber. I'm talking Survivor Series. I'm talking Money in the Bank. I want John to do everything. And maybe that's the plan. It's more than likely not going to be. But maybe, am I bad for that? Am I a bad person? Does that make me a bad person? If so, I can live with that. But yeah, so John Cena is going to be in the Royal Rumble. But next up for the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley, he looks to once again gain the Women's World Championship from Liv Morgan, and Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan had been feuding for the latter half of 2024. Or two mixed results, but on almost every turn, Liv Morgan has managed to escape and almost always have Rhea's number. She stole her title and she stole her man, the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour, or kicked off, and Liv Morgan ended off the year with the championship. But will she be able to withstand and the Eradicator? Or we will find out. But as for this match was pretty solid. Between this match, their match at SummerSlam, and their match at Bad Blood, the Bad Blood one is at the bottom, unfortunately. This match, honestly, I don't know if I want to put this match over the SummerSlam match. I think I might hate. Honestly, it's kind of a toss up between the two. Both were pretty good, but I think this one I'll give kind of the edge towards, especially with the extra circumstances that had admittedly adding it to the match. I'm sure probably annoyed some, but I think for me it did kind of add that level of like drama and tension to the match. Of course, we do have the interference from Dom, and I'm also not just saying that because Rhea Ripley does end up winning this match. Sorry for the spoiler, but the added tension of like Raquel Rodriguez throwing in the chair while Dom has referee distracted by throwing in the title. Well, not even the first time they've done something like that at it has the Judgment Day. Similar to how Liv won at SummerSlam, but this time Rhea shakes it off. Liv kicking out of a Riptide, which is crazy, but then Rhea hitting two successive on Liv to pick up the win against her. So Rhea Ripley, mommy, is once again on top, and she is the women's world champion once again. And Dominic wants to make a match, and Dom, buddy, whose side are you on? But I'm pretty sure at this point Dom's just following the gold. But follow it no more, because Rhea then and low blows Dom and hits him with the Riptide. So she finally hits the Riptide on him. Then the Undertaker shows up, but instead of being the gothic dead man Undertaker, it's Biker Taker, which I don't think he's been like dead man Undertaker or since his match against AJ Styles at Mania 36. But Undertaker shows up with the motorcycle. Well, kind of gives the dabs the respect to Rhea Ripley. A lot of people were upset at this. They felt like Undertaker was kind of stealing Ripley's moment, and if anything, Undertaker was sharing the moment with Rhea Ripley, and him kind of giving her the nod, the stamp of approval, I think was pretty cool. Especially like them dapping up, raising the fist, stuff like that. I don't think it took away from it at all. I can see maybe how some people could interpret it that way, but I definitely didn't. Next up was Jey Uso battling the Scottish Warrior Drew McIntyre. So of course Drew McIntyre has it out for the OG Bloodline, and is going after them. Even though I mentioned before, Drew probably in kayfabe, if Drew is to be justified, which obviously he's not because he's the heel, but if he's to be justified, he probably should go after the new Bloodline too, because they do call back to the match at Clash of the Castle 2022 a lot, and that's the moment Drew mainly is talking about when talking about being screwed over by the Bloodline, which but have you forgotten that it was Solo who ultimately cost you the match? And that's not even the first time I mentioned it here on the channel. So Drew McIntyre is going after the OG Bloodlines, already taking out Jimmy and Sammy. Of course, he beat Sammy back at Saturday night's main event. If you haven't already, go check out my review of that. But Jay also coming down with Travis Scott, and Scott even Smokes on his way down. I don't know, which did catch a little bit of flack, and I think did catch them off guard, if I'm not mistaken. But they ultimately went along with it and walked alongside Jay. A pretty cool entrance there. Jay not even waiting for Drew to come all the way down into the ring and flying over to kick things off in high gear. This match was pretty fun. And pretty much to kind of further the storyline between Drew McIntyre and the OG Bloodline. And if this week's Raw, and by this week I obviously mean last night, if this week's Raw is anything to go by, Drew, who is likely going to be facing off against Roman pretty soon. So we'll wait and see if and when that comes to fruition. But as for this match, Jay and Drew, some pretty good back and forth between the two. The crowd actually behind both. We got a Let's Go Jay chant as well as a Let's Go Drew chant, and Jay nailing some shots. The offense was a bit more 50-50 than expected, if not more in the favor of Jay, which was a little surprising. But ultimately, Drew who does nail the Claymore or at one point on Jay. He is going for another, but Jay does collapse down. But it's a ruse. Jay was playing possum. He does. As Drew and misses another Claymore, and Jay rolls him up to get the win. And so Jay with a surprise win on Drew McIntyre there. So props to Jay. But next up is the main event. But before that, in a moment that's actually not mentioned here in the article, and gee, I wonder why, Hulk Hogan comes out. Oh, yep, it's the moment I'm sure you who watching at home have all been waiting for, or Hulk Hogan coming out to promote and promote his beer and to address the WWE Universe. Oh boy, this this moment was incredible. Well, it was incredible to say the least. He's because Dominic Mysterio he wishes he could get the amount of boos that Hogan was getting, and Hogan was booed out of the building, and he was even getting booed before he spoke. Hogan putting over his beer, you know what? I'll give props to Hogan. He didn't crack. He got through and said what he needed to say. He ripped off the shirt to reveal the Raw on Netflix logo as the crowd still pelted him with booze. And then he left. At least they kept it short. I'll say. Hey, they kept the speech short, but man, it was simultaneously, it was a combination of awkward, it was a combination of awkward, full of secondhand embarrassment, and also pretty hilarious at the same time. It was cringe, but it's funny cringe. Just how, it's not a case of Hogan flubbing his lines or botching, but just the absolute Hogan having to try to carry on while the crowd booed him was pretty funny. And apparently Hogan was kind of upset. He got his feelings hurt, and was also a bit surprised that the audience would boo him. Now, I probably don't need to go over the history of what Hogan's done to earn a lot of the vitriol of the WWE Universe, but between the racism and the backstage politics. So Hogan thinking that he either has short-term memory loss or he thinks that we do. But it was something. And admittedly, I did have to go back and watch a couple of matches. I had to go back and watch Liv vs. Rhea and Drew vs. Jay because I actually did miss them in the initial broadcast. I tried to go back and watch the segment. I couldn't do it. As funny as it is still pretty cringe to see. I can't lie. Hey, but nevertheless, enough of that. Main event time. As two bitter rivals seek to settle their differences as CM Punk battles Seth freaking Rollins. So these two who have been feuding for a while now, have absolute disdain for each other both on and off camera. Theirs is a pretty long and pretty tricky history as to why they don't like each other, but it essentially comes down to this match, the WrestleMania match that we didn't get last year because of CM Punk's tricep injury, which it also worth mentioning on last night's episode of Raw, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre are all gonna be in the Royal Rumble. But and I do like how going also referencing them being in the Rumble from last night's Raw. Seth Rollins is essentially in the Rumble. Well, it's seemingly in canon. Seth Rollins is essentially in the Rumble just to make sure CM Punk doesn't win. And Seth apparently couldn't care less if he doesn't win the Rumble as long as CM Punk doesn't win. And I mean, Seth, to be fair, we've seen people eliminate people from the Rumble that weren't in it. You don't necessarily need to be in the Rumble in order to eliminate Punk, but I guess Seth doesn't want to take the easy road, which Punk called on him. But as for this match, though, what a match! Having this match main event over the Tribal Combat Bloodline Rules What Have You match, I think was a very smart move. Like having this his feud, which had caught a lot of fire, had been a match that was gonna happen at WrestleMania, and something that you've built towards for much longer than Roman versus Solo, although that one had been building for a while. Excuse me, especially with Punk and Rollins going after each other. Excuse me, especially like the press conference and stuff like that. Having this main event over Roman versus Solo, I think again, very very smart move. And these two absolutely tore the house down. Now Seth Rollins even hitting CM Punk with the GTS, but Punk did hit Rollins with a stomp, so I guess does make them even, and Punk ultimately getting the win with not one but two GTSs. The second one busting Rollins open and pretty badly. And they may not like each other, but at least Punk called over the referee to check on Seth. People had pointed that out that they had noticed that on Twitter, but. Props to Punk for that, but yeah, a very, very fantastic match and a great way to end off the show. If this match happened at WrestleMania, would it be a WrestleMania caliber match? Especially with this potentially being for the World Championship? I think so. Well, I think this would be a good enough WrestleMania caliber match. Was it the super intense blow off that McIntyre versus Punk was? I wouldn't say that, but it's still a really good match and a really great way to end off the show. But yeah, that is Raw's debut on Netflix. Now, before we get into like the strongest and weakest matches of the night, I will say this Raw, like this debut episode of Raw, was definitely more about the spectacle. But I think that was probably a given, right? Like it was definitely more about getting eyes on the product. And if the viewership numbers are to be believed, they accomplished that, so I'll give credit where it's due. But this was definitely more about drawing eyes to the product and having a big debut, getting the big name and stuff like that. As for the actual wrestling stuff, yeah, like if you're looking for a lot of matches and a lot of like storyline advancement and like traditional Raw stuff, which goes back and forth, give or take, in terms of that actually being good. Yeah, you weren't gonna find it here. This was definitely more about making a good first impression, and so I think in that front it did well. But especially with like all the extra segments and stuff like that. But yeah, not a bad maiden voyage, not a bad first episode for Raw on Netflix. As for the strongest week's match of the night, the strongest I gotta give to the main event. Hence, the Tribal Combat rules match was also pretty good, but the main event was very, very fantastic. And a great way to end off the show. And for the weakest, maybe Jay versus Drew, but that's only by comparison. But nevertheless, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Raw on Netflix and their debut. Are you excited to see where Raw heads in this new era, which they're really putting over that this is a new era? Are you excited? Are you not? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.